5 minutes past 8 here this morning. It's time for the Power Rankings. This next slot is our Power Rankings slot, which has become known as Two Pricks, One List.
BOLLOCKS.
Go away fancy Dans. Get the simple things wrong. A nice tea. There's only one answer for that.
Where did this ferocious determination out there today come from?
The media. Every one of them wrote us off.
The article was rubbish.
You know, it's not my fault that we just haven't beat Kerry in a big game in Croke Park.
I'm going to lose what we like today.
It is time for the Power Ranking with Owen Sheehan. Owen Sheehan's Power Ranking. How did that happen? You're a clown. That's a bit harsh. You're a clown's a bit harsh to finish that, because it makes it sound like I say that every week, and I don't. That's not what our relationship is. That was just it. You might have made a mistake once. I'd like that. We should delete that. Delete your account.
A live recording every single week, folks. He says that line live every single week. The rest of it is just this thing. Let's get straight into things here. Number 32, Sligo forfeited the game. They're going to spend the winter at number 32. At number 31 is London. At number 30 is Waterford. At number 29 is Carlow. 28 is Antrim. 27 is Louth. 26 is Wexford. 25 is Leitrim. They're all yesterday's news in this year's championship. None of them have moved anywhere. The same goes for our next page here. Number 24 is Wicklow. Number 23 is Limerick. 22 is Offaly. 21 is Longford. Derry get us underway in the top 20. 19 is Fermanagh. 18 is Westmeath. And 17 is Clare. Right, number 16, down 3 places, is Laois. Their defeat just about sneaks into the top 5 biggest Leinster Championship defeats at the hand of this Dublin team, their glory years over the past decade, basically. This is their 5th biggest win in the Leinster Championship, the 22-point defeat at the weekend. It could always be worse, though. Don't forget that, Laois people. Let's not forget that Westmeath got beaten by 31 points in 2017, which is still the record. Number 15 is down up one place, although VAR might have ruled the goal out that killed them off on Sunday, but unfortunate from their perspective. At 14 is Kildare, the sort of team that you would pick your captain in fantasy football to play against. 5 really bad goals conceded on Sunday. Tipperary are up 2 places to 13. Monaghan stay in 12th. Armagh are in 11th, down a couple of places. And I've picked them up for a long time here in the slot, and I will put my hands up and say, I misjudged them. We all make mistakes, and the headline here today should be Gracious Power Rankings person gets it right after charitable admission of vulnerability. It takes a big person to admit his mistakes, and I've made one big Armagh-shaped mistake. At number 10 is Roscommon, down 3 places. Connacht final franked their form, and not in a good way. At number 9 is Cavan, up 2 places. Can we alive.
Oh, okay. Sorry, finish your Cavan point, and then we'll stay on this page for just a second. So finish your Cavan point. Go on.
Basically, just going to say they're still alive, still going strong for the 2nd consecutive year now. A team relegated to Division 3 have made it into the last stage of the All-Ireland Championship. So Cavan in at 9.
Okay. I think a few things. I think Laois are too high. I think you take a pummeling like that, you're too high. I think Derry and Fermanagh on the previous page are behind Westmeath. I think that teams who play in Ulster, this is a new rule that I'm just making up, and I'm making this up on the spur of the moment here. But actually, the Ulster Football Championship is so far ahead of Leinster at the moment. Leinster is so absolutely abysmal. The 7 goals that Wicklow conceded should actually have them down pretty close to where London and Sligo are. Like, everybody has capitulated this year, primarily because they're in Dublin's side of the draw, and they're like, well, sure, we're not going to beat Dublin. What's the point? They're undergoing an existential crisis that essentially has them like philosophizing like a Frenchman, going, why bother? There is no point to this. All is dread, all is over. And actually, you should dump them, and you should bump up Derry, and you should bump up Fermanagh, and I can't see Laois and Kildare making that 2nd page. I thought that, like, and honestly, Jack O'Connor not being talked about as one of those managers under pressure, but should be. Like, the performance was so abysmal, the lack of a plan, the lack of any significant idea of what our attacking structure was or what our defensive structure was, speaks to me of a manager who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That was so. Is
he gone from hot seat to tightrope territory, do you think, this winter?
Dump them from that page is what I'm saying there. Yeah, I think that's. I think the patience will be relatively thin.
What's been the inquest in Kildare like? Has it been brutal? Is it something that Jack O'Connor might be familiar with?
It's fair to say I've tuned out. I didn't want to get involved. You know the way people mute and unmute certain words when a TV series is coming up to its finale on Twitter. I've done a little bit of that. Next week maybe I'll be ready to go back and have a look and talk to some people and see what's going on. But I can't. It's like, what's the point? What's the point?
Just on Laois, I actually can't bring myself to bring them down that much slower than that. Like, they've been a good side for the last year and a half now. They survived in Division 2 at the end of the Alliance Leagues. They had a good championship last year, and I know it was a 22-point defeat, but I think that that's more to do with Dublin as much as anything else. They tend to put up one ridiculous win in the Leinster Championship every single year. As I mentioned, the 31-point win a couple of years ago. A team is going to get beaten by 20 points no matter who they are at some stage in the Leinster Championship. And last weekend, it just so happened that Dublin decided that it was going to be Laois. You could make a case, of course, after 22-point hammering, that of course they could be lower, but not for me, not just yet. Like, I think this year's championship has to be a little bit more forgiving in these rankings because it's one game and you're out. On Wicklow, I think you're being really harsh on Wicklow. I'm going to stand up for the people of Wicklow here for a second. Like, they've had a good year, Wicklow. I know conceding 7 goals doesn't really cap off a good year for anybody. They've got promoted. Things are going in the right direction for Wicklow. They scored 7 goals themselves in one of the games they played in the National League after the restart this year. So they're definitely going in the right direction. I think they're definitely worthy to be inside the top 25 teams in the country at the moment. Okay.
Top 25 out of 32. You're right. They're shit hot, as we say. Okay, let's go on, because Cavan at 9, I think we're going to have a little conversation about. But go on, keep going. Show me your top 8 here.
Me, they're up 2 places. It's 8. So I guess they can stop training now. That's it. That's their All-Ireland one. Finally into the top page of the Power Rankings. Like, Tommy Rooney has cracked a bottle of Hennessy or something right now at 12 minutes past 8 on this Wednesday morning. Finally, they can go home happy. Their best result since 1999. Congratulations to everybody.
Book fast for breakfast. Breakfast of Royal Champions.
Breakfast of Royal Champions, indeed. Number 7, then, is Galway. They're actually up a place, and they will be kicking themselves after Sunday. Didn't play well whatsoever. They played really badly in parts, actually, I thought. But still, just 1 point off a team who could well be All-Ireland finalists. And you can't not be excited for them next year. After we've seen a couple of teams come up against Mayo, I think Galway are the 7th best team in the country.
So hang on. You can lose and go up in the power rankings. We're just establishing fact here.
Yes, because
you can lose and you can go up in the power rankings. They lost well. The very definition of a moral victory.
They moved up because Roscommon moved down. Do you think Roscommon should be above them in the power rankings?
I think Cavan should be above them.
But the point here is Roscommon.
No, it's not. The point is not Roscommon. The point is Cavan on the second page. Cavan have had like 2 Lazarus-like comebacks and are now building on what they did last year, and there's like a clear sign that they're actually a good championship team. Unlike Galway, who are flaky and have shown themselves to be flaky, who didn't execute their manager's game plan at the weekend, who their manager criticised to the point where he was disowning some of the actions, essentially. And I think Cavan are going to be disgusted that they're only up to 9th, considering all the teams who are out of the championship who are ahead of them at the moment.
The reason Galway moved up a place is because Roscommon dropped down. So we got an opportunity to see Roscommon play Mayo. We got an opportunity to see Galway play Mayo. Believe it or not, Mayo can't play a team twice in the one weekend. These games happened at different times in the history of the universe. So last week we did a power ranking slot, and that was the week after Roscommon played Mayo. This week we're doing a power ranking slot, and this is the week after Galway played Mayo. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? I hope it does.
You're using Mayo as a form line.
Moved down. That is what.
You're using Mayo as a form line.
Because Roscommon played Mayo, because Galway played Mayo. Mayo are the same team as the Mayo who played Roscommon last week. It is a very simple formula. We now have a team that we can gauge these 2 counties off. Lo and behold, Galway looked better against Mayo than Roscommon did. So what did the power rankings person do? Well, he moved Roscommon below Galway. It is a very simple move. And hence, if a team moves below a team, that team that got moved below from actually moves up a place. It is unbelievable, isn't it? I'm sure you'll be able to get your head around that eventually. But Galway are up to 7th place.
Cavan should be ahead of them, right? Go on, keep going.
Cavan are not a better team than Galway. At number 6 is Tyrone. At number 5 is Kerry. At number 4 is Cork. Big weekend for them. We'll have to see how they handle the expectation in a Munster final that's basically going to be a pre-season warm-up for a lot of professional Australian athletes. But sure, look, I suppose winning is all that matters. Number 3 is Mayo down 1 place because, you know, you're going to say, oh, how can you move down a place after a win? Well, it's more to do with Donegal moving up to second. Mayo not looking amazing at the weekend. Enough to give you concern that Dublin might do them again this year by a bit of a margin. Donegal, though, unbelievably impressive. Donegal, unbelievably impressive and move up to second place. The second best team in the country on the evidence of last weekend. I do think it's going to be a Mayo against Dublin All-Ireland final. But do I think that Donegal are going to run Dublin closer? Yes, and as a result, I think they're the second best team in the country right now. You look across their team, they've got small players like Peadar Morgan and Ryan McHugh. They've got medium-sized players like Jamie Brennan. They've got big players like Michael Murphy. They are like evolution of man on a football field, and they can all play brilliant football. This is an outstanding Donegal team, which has come along at just the wrong time because we've got a dominant Dublin team who are going nowhere, and Dublin are obviously going to win the All-Ireland this year, but Donegal will be their closest game.
Look, I think that you'd make Dublin slight favourites probably, would they be 4 to 5 point favourites against Donegal? They probably would be if the game was on tomorrow morning. Just to point out how fallacious these power rankings are, Mayo win a game and go down a point against a team who they beat Galway, who get beaten and go up. It's like, okay, perfect, I see how this balance works, this crazy, weird algorithm in your brain that seems to have sputtered. It seems to have some lead poisoning from the fact that Kerry got beaten by Cork.
Did you watch the weekend? Did you see that performance at the weekend?
Yeah, they were very good. They're very good. It's just that
Mayo are better than Donegal at the moment.
There's no consistency. I think that Galway going up, Galway and Roscommon could both have gone down. Other teams could have come up. There's a recalibration there. Flaky Galway couldn't do what Galway said they would do when they were flattering to deceive in the early part of the league. Since they've come back, they've actually not been very good. They haven't been able to get their best players to do things that we know they're capable of, and that's for them to fix. I'm not saying this is terminal. I think that actually next year they should be on that first page and they will deserve their place. Right now they don't deserve their place on that first page, and actually Cavan, you could argue, do. Cork are very high for somebody on your list, for somebody who, when the results happened, we're like, well, do you know what, I actually don't think both Mayo and Cork are going to make it through. And then you kind of slowly softened your line. But there's no way you think they're 5 point favourites against Tip at the weekend. Do you think that there's a good chance Tipperary are going to turn Cork over?
Well, I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be very like the game in 2016 when it finished up Tipperary 3-15, Cork 2-16. I think it could, okay, it's winter time, so it's not going to be that sort of scoreline, but I think it's going to be another epic. But that was the first time Tip had beaten Cork since 1944. Tip don't beat Cork very often, and maybe the fact that we're actually giving them a chance the weekend is the last thing Tipperary want. But Quinlivan's back, Colin O'Riordan is back. Like these are all-time great football talents from a Tipperary perspective. Quinlivan was brilliant on that day in 2016 against Cork, and I just think they have enough big game players to really cause Cork a lot of trouble. And Cork played a near-perfect game against Kerry. If any imperfection creeps in, which is, I don't know, just being a little bit sloppy in front of goal, which can easily happen to a team in these conditions, then Tipperary have every chance. And I do give Tipperary every chance. Like, Galway not being on the first page, I think is really harsh from you. I think that the league showing that they put in, do we just discount that? Do we just think about what happened post-pandemic with Galway?
League is league, championship is championship, right? Like the boring old cliche that is has actually become a cliche because some teams are great in the league and they put everything out into it and then roll around the important part of the season and they can't do the things they're supposed to do under pressure. It should be a long, introspective winter for Galway to think, what did we do wrong that everybody else was doing right, to be able to get their best players to perform in the way that was pitch perfect in these games or close enough to win games. Like, this Mayo team have the progress that this Mayo team have made this season versus where they were last year is fairly phenomenal. They look now like they have a collection of players at the right age that are going to be able to carry them through an 18-month period. And if some of those young players are as good as we think they are, well, then actually they're going to be grand for the next 5 years. Like Galway, you're like, you actually have to start winning these games. This is your time. You know, some of your players are not getting younger. Like, you're not adding enough young players to that squad. This is their peak. Obviously, Comer's injury, I think, really did them. But just to talk about Tipperary briefly, because if Tip win this game, which you give them not quite an even 50-50 chance, but a 40% chance of winning, then they'll be in the All-Ireland semi-finals and they'll be ranked 13th in your power rankings. They're ranked 13th at the moment. They're behind Armagh and they're behind Roscommon. And I just think that, like, if you think they have a chance of winning, you're really riding two horses here. It's like, they're not that good,
No.
but they still have a chance of winning.
Well, no, these are based on what you've actually shown this year. And Tipperary have not been good for quite some time. They've come good at just the right time and they've got the best players available to them at just the right time. Like, they haven't been good because they were missing Quinlivan for all of this year. They've been on a little bit of a nosedive since flirting with promotion to Division 1, since getting to an All-Ireland semi-final in 2016. Nosedive is a bit strong, but they've been on a downward curve for the last little while. They actually haven't come up with a massive result that should have them higher than 13th. Like, Cork were they were just about inside the top 10 before beating Kerry, and then they rocket up to number 4. That's how these things work. I'll need to see a big result from Tip to move them up, and if you said it's riding two horses, then so be it. Like, I don't know if that's the case at all. I think that the teams outside of Cork and Kerry that you can possibly beat in the Munster Championship to give yourself an impressive boost in the power rankings is very limited. There isn't any team outside of Kerry and Cork that you can beat in the Munster Championship and move yourself up to the top 10 automatically.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Meath. So Meath finally make the front page. Is this the first time in their history? Did they make it last year?
I'd say they made it last. I was well on the Meath horse when they were in Division 2. It's everything that's happened since then, up until last weekend, which I was disappointed with.
Okay. Fundamentally, I think that what Meath have done is take the challenge head on that Dublin pose, which is, this is the best team in the country. How the hell are we going to beat them? What are we going to do? They're the first team who, it seems to me, has decided that, okay, what we're going to try and do is score a lot of goals. And if that works, great. And if it doesn't, back to the drawing board. We have these other things that we're doing too. But nobody else has taken that challenge. The stuff in the papers is always like, what do you do against Dublin? You try and you batten down the hatches and you get into the qualifiers on a normal year and you try and keep the score down as much as you can. You compete with them for as long as you can and then you accept that they're going to burn you off in the last 15, 20 minutes because that's what they are, which is fundamentally defeatist. It means that competition makes no sense, right? And we all know that. But Meath can't do that because Meath are aristocrats of the game. The kids who are on that Meath team when they were kids, growing up when they were kids, were like growing up watching their team win All-Ireland. So they have a duty to that heritage and to that jersey to try and do something. And they've actually fundamentally come up with a plan. Whether or not the plan is madness, I don't know. It doesn't seem like madness. It seems like there's something reasonable there. It's a bit wild, but sure, that's what you want. And I think they actually deserve a good bit more respect than they're getting. I might have them fifth. It's not fifth. I might have them sixth at this stage. I think Tyrone and Kerry have to start leeching off. Like, as we get further and further removed from the fact that they put in, Kerry went to bed. Tyrone at least put in a good performance against one of the best teams in the country, but Kerry were dire. Like, we have to now look at what Kerry did this year, and it was nothing. It's a big sum of nothing. I'm not saying Meath are better than Kerry, but the power rankings should be like at least taking into account. At least they should at least be taking into account the fact that Meath are still in the championship and they have something to play for. Maybe after this weekend it's gone and they get beaten 22 points and that's fine. But this is safe, conservative, slightly, empire, empirical. This is, you're the British Empire here, essentially, and the rest of us are your little colonial inferiorities. Well, you know what? Meath have had enough of that. Meath are coming to shove 7 goals down your face.
Tell me this then. Are Meath a better team than Tyrone or Kerry or both? Because that's the way they get into the top 5.
Well, I think that maybe I'd like to see Meath play Tyrone. I'd like to see Meath play Tyrone and Croker. I'm not giving you the win for Tyrone in that game. I'm not. And Kerry, are Kerry going to be flaky? Are they going to miss all their frees? Which Kerry's going to show up, Owen?
Well, all you can really do is judge maybe on the last 2 times they played each other, which has happened in the last championship and in the last league, and Kerry won both of those games. You can maybe judge, if you're just going to judge it on one recent game, then of course Kerry are team 20-something, because they played one game and they lost it in the championship. And if you don't want to do that, then the thing you have to look at is what was the previous body of evidence that we had. and that is the National League games that resumed after the pandemic. Do you give a team credit for winning a National League that happened after the pandemic? I think you probably do. Maybe you think we don't, and that's why they're still within the top 5. I think Tyrone obviously ran Donegal very close, and that's why they're still around there. We know that Tyrone are definitely a top 6 or 7 team. There's no question about that with the players they have. I just think Meath haven't proved it at all. Like they haven't beaten a good team. Like if you're like Kildare, as good a team as they've beaten. I'm trying to think back to last summer. They beat Clare to get themselves into the Super 8s. They proceeded to lose all the Super 8s games. They came out with a draw in this year's National League. Granted, the draw came very late in the day and is recent enough. I just think that like they showed really good form in getting promotion to Division 1. And the vast majority of stuff that we've seen from them thereafter has been largely disappointing. Like you applaud a team for taking on Dublin, sure, but you applaud a team more if they can take Dublin on and have some semblance of success for a little period of time. Like kicking 4 points against Dublin last year was not a great moment for me. Like the idea of giving a team credit for taking on Dublin has to end when they try to do that and fail miserably. And that's what happened last year. It looked good for about 12, 15 minutes, but it fell flat in its face, that challenge. Like getting to the Super 8s, there was a sense that, you know, they deserve to be rewarded for being in the Super 8s rather than actually putting themselves in a position to actually win a game in the Super 8s. And I know they came close in a couple of those games, and they came close in pretty much every game they played in Division 1 this year, which shows that a big win could be coming soon. But it's just that no man's land between the Kildares and the Dublins, which Meath now exist in, and they will beat Kildare, but they will fall flat against Dublin, unfortunately. I'd love for them to be higher, and I'd love if there was a legitimate case, but right now there isn't legitimate evidence to say that Meath are a top 7 team.
Okay, and very, very briefly, nothing that you saw from Dublin at the weekend, not that first half performance where Cluxton was chipping kickouts over the sideline?
No, that actually kind of makes it more fearsome, I think. Like, as I said, they do it every year. They beat a team by over 20 points every single year. The only year they didn't do it really was 2016. I don't know what happened that year. Maybe they were happy with their 1 in a row after getting back to the top. They only managed to beat Westmeath by measly 15 points, and that was their best result in Ulster in 2015. But every year they do this, and this year is no different. If they had gone through, if they like won by, say, 10, 11 points at the weekend, there might be a little bit of worry, because you might start thinking to yourself, well, do they have the hunger to absolutely annihilate a team when it doesn't matter? When they're 10 points up anyway with 20 minutes to go, will they actually push on? And they very much pushed on, and there's still huge competition for places in that team. And like you've got a player like Bugler there in the forward line who is a new scoring forward that they found. They've had a lot of new forwards in recent years, but maybe not a lot of scoring forwards. And to add more threat to the damage that they're going to do on the scoreboard, it's just the last thing Dublin's opponents would have wanted to see. They're in brilliant shape, absolutely phenomenal shape, and they're probably going to win this year's All-Ireland. All
right, it's 28 minutes past 8 here this morning. A couple of quick comments for you. Michael says, it's insane how high Owen has Cork. This is on WhatsApp, 0879 180 180. Tip are going to take them at the weekend and expose how insanely flawed his rankings are. Division 3 Cork got way too much kudos for sucker punching a Kerry side who were too confident. Dara says, it seems Sheehan is on every horse each way. Kevin Cronin says, Kerry did what England do in rugby every year. Total arrogance. Had the game won before showing up. The ads on TV and the pundits serves them right. Do you want to respond on behalf of your Kerry and your county men? The ads on TV and the pundits.
It's like, it's maybe actually like Ireland at the Rugby World Cup last year, worrying about the All Blacks rather than worrying about Japan. And the plucky hosts on that day managed to take down the very confident team in green. And that metaphor pertains to both of those teams. So maybe not England, maybe more Ireland.
Jamie says, nice to see all 297 Kerry pundits with egg on their face. Daniel Keelan says, Monaghan are way better than 12th. Mayo should be number 1, says A. Brennan. Galway very flaky with the manager, make crazy subs. And Brendan Graham says, Wicklow deserve better at Jurgen Roy. I'm with at Owen Sheehan. Still had a lot to do after the restart. Promotion to Division 3 and followed up by beating Wexford again in knockout football. Fair enough, some of the above is diluted by their capitulation against Meath, but not all. Right, let's move on.